the kind of people who come to your classes are not really the group that absolutely need yoga. They don't tend to be. Some of them will, but most of them are going to be people who already have quite a high level of awareness of their physical body, enough motivation and self-care skills to get themselves to a yoga class. And what we really need to do if we want to address some chronic problems in society is to start to reach out and bring into yoga those people with long-term conditions, and those people, and this is what we do with our Yoga4Health 10-week social prescribing protocol, which I know you heard about from Joe Birmingham last year, who's one of our Yoga4Health teachers in your area. What we do there is reach out through the NHS and capture groups of patients who are all at risk of developing long-term conditions. So they are, and forgive me if you heard this before, we're really brief. So these are people who may be at risk of developing cardiovascular disease. They may be pre-diabetic, so if they don't change their lifestyle, they're going to develop type 2 diabetes. They may be socially isolated, and that can, there are obvious groups of people like older people who've lost their partner, but also younger people with various, shyness, other low-level mental health conditions that might have left them feeling excluded and isolated. And we know from studies that social isolation is a highly relevant determinant of current health and future health. And finally, anyone who's suffering from stress and mild to moderate anxiety or depression. And in those four categories, so risk of type 2 diabetes, cardiovascular disease, social isolation, mental health problems, is a vast number of people. And just to link that into the national picture, so although we're just hopefully emerging from an infectious disease pandemic, they're pretty unusual. Most 70% of worldwide deaths are from non-communicable diseases that they're all lifestyle related to a greater or lesser extent. And 60% of NHS appointments and care is devoted to people with long-term conditions. So if yoga can reach into that picture and capture and begin to attract and teach people to enable them to take control of their health and to avoid those chronic conditions, it'll not only make a massive difference to those individuals, it will also help the healthcare systems. And it's important that you know that the NHS now understands this, and in fact in its current long-term plan, it names social prescribing and universal personalised care as the kind of keystones going forward for the next 10 years. So that means that they really recognise that with an ageing population and so many long-term conditions because of non-communicable diseases, and so many patients presenting to doctors with conditions that actually really need a social prescription, not a medical prescription. They need to join a fitness club, a walking group, a luncheon club for social connection, or do a yoga class, because yoga is like the gold medal of social prescribing, because it does so many things. It builds social connection, it builds physical and mental resilience, it builds relaxation skills, it builds skills for life. It's just an incredibly powerful intervention. And we now have a vast evidence base. So pretty much the last thing I want to say on that is that, as we embed, and this is the whole purpose of the Yoga and Healthcare Alliance charity, is to embed yoga into healthcare. As we make progress on that, we hope to reach more and more people. We've got 225 teachers out there. Just going to wave a couple of books. So the practice and principles. Whoops, that's not that one. The Practice and Principles of Yoga in Healthcare, Satbir Khalsa, who's on our board of directors. This is a bit of a reference manual for yoga therapists, but it covers 300 randomized control trials into the efficacy of yoga. I bet many of you got Yoga as Medicine, Timothy McCall. His book, I've done a few courses with him. Also, really, really good. I'll just wave these books now, then I don't have to do it later. Some of them will become more relevant as we go through the session. Robin Rothenberg, who's one of the leading yoga therapists in the United States, you may have heard of her. Restoring Prana is a fantastic book, and particularly strong on breathing. And a lot of Robin's insights into breathing come from the Buteyko technique. So Patrick McEwen's book, this is a new book called The Breathing Cure. Also very interesting. We'll be doing a little bit of Buteyko breathing in this session for those of you who haven't experienced that before. And then, just a great summary of the power of lifestyle medicine is in the Dean Ornish and his wife Anne Ornish is a yoga teacher, so there's a lot of yoga in this, a lot of citation of research evidence in that. And what yoga therapists, and I work really closely with Heather. We've just submitted a final manuscript for a book we've co-written, which will be out next year. But Heather spends a lot of time reading research papers on PubMed, and not a lot of yoga teachers realise you can go on PubMed, which is a website where academic research into various things are published. Type in yoga, and just look. There are hundreds and hundreds of research papers, and they all have an abstract at the top, which will take you 5 minutes to read. So you can really scroll down and think, oh well, this is. I've got some students in my class that have got anxiety. Let's have a look at the anxiety ones, and just sort of inform yourself and get into that habit. So perhaps we haven't got that many people attending because I didn't go for the more controversial title for the session, which would have been benefit or bullshit ? And that would be because that would be a running theme through this session, is that if we do want to make progress on bringing yoga into social prescribing, and I would argue that is the kind of meta societal purpose of yoga at this moment in time, then we're going to have to talk the language of biomedical science. We're going to have to present evidence for mind-body intervention, and we can't bowl up there with completely outdated nonsense that you read in so many yoga books. And at the end, I'll do a little bit of my benefit or bullshit quiz for your entertainment. Okay, so I should just mention that Yoga and Healthcare Alliance is also the secretariat for the all-party parliamentary group on yoga in society, and that has slightly broader aims of bringing yoga into not only healthcare but also education, prisons and the private sector. So when we hold meetings in Parliament with MPs and peers and others, and we've had people like Stephen Porges over to talk to them, we bring in a much wider range of people. So our organisation is not there to try to monopolise yoga and healthcare. It's there to act as a focus, and we welcome everybody who's working in yoga and healthcare. But we're also trying to, through the APPG, cast a slightly wider net to bring in those other sectors as well. Okay, so the session of the actual yoga, having done my little polemic and call to action, is going to be in 3 parts. We're going to start with some breath work, then we're going to do a fairly short, about 20-minute physical practice where I'll showcase some of the kinds of things that we do with our NHS patients, and then I'll lead you into a short meditation, and then we'll finish with the benefits, the benefits slightly tongue-in-cheek part of the class. So for this breathing practice, you could sit in a chair, or you can sit on a mat, or you could even start in semi-supine if you want to, up to you. I'm not going to be able to, I'm spotlighted, so I'm not really going to have a great view of you. Everything we're going to do is going to be ultra safe. So, if you want to take your camera off, switch your camera off, that's fine by me, because I'm not really going to be using that today. There is nothing in here that will cause any injury. So beginning with breath work. Just before I started this session, I put my finger in my oximeter. I don't know if any of you have them. They often give them to older people with long-term conditions. And what it does, you can just stick it on your finger. It costs sort of £10, and very rapidly it will give you your blood oxygen saturation level. So mine's sitting within normal range at 99%, and it will give you your heart rate. Mine's currently 94 beats per minute. It was just a shade over 100 just before we started, which is the usual pre-teaching nerves kicking in. So I would like you to just, if you don't, not expect you to have an oximeter, but you may be quite adept at taking your pulse, or you may just be able to tune into your heart rate and notice it, because the first practice we're going to do is designed to slow heart rate and does a few other things. So be in a really comfortable position. I tend to always start my classes in a chair, and then I take people down to the mat, and then I give chair and mat instructions simultaneously, and that's part of a philosophy of inclusive teaching. It's necessary in the Yoga4Health protocol because of the kind of patients we get, but I do it all the time now because I tend to record my sessions and put them on my Serious Yoga YouTube channel, so there's a lot of classes up there, and I just want them to be inclusive, so anyone in a wheelchair or who's unable to come down to a mat can still participate. So closing your eyes, just take a moment to tune into your breath, and unless the nose is blocked, we're going to do all our breathing in and out through the nose. And take a moment to turn your awareness and your attention within, and begin to really tune into what is happening inside for you right now. So notice how you're feeling generally in your body, relaxed, tense, soft or hard, somewhere in between those perhaps. Notice any areas of your body that have been giving you cause for concern or attention, any injuries or long-term conditions. And notice your energy levels right now, where you would put yourself on a scale of 1 to 10 in terms of wellness and well-being. Hopefully a 7 or 8 or even a 9 would be great, but if you're down a little bit, then this is an opportunity to self-care and nurture and perhaps just move up the scale a little bit. Notice your state of mind. Reflect on the level of activity of the mind. Is the mind quite active? Are quite a lot of thoughts coming in? This is the essential nature of the mind, to generate thoughts, and the essential aim of a yoga practice is to begin to turn that flow down and down and down until it becomes a drip and may even cease for a short time altogether. Would you describe your mind as settled or agitated or somewhere on that spectrum? If we don't finish our yoga practice or a class we're attending in a state of mind that is more settled than when we began, there is something wrong with the practice or the class. So I'd like you to focus on the breath now, and particularly on the diaphragm. So in this relaxed initial breath awareness, we're just looking to really feel that the diaphragm is doing just about all our breathing. We don't need the external intercostals, which assist us for a much deeper inhalation. The diaphragm has more than enough capacity. And for many reasons, structural and physiological, we want to ensure that we are using our main breathing muscle. It's going to help us move into parasympathetic response in our autonomic nervous system. It's going to help us increase our autonomic regulation. If we're breathing with our chest muscles, or even worse with our chest muscles and our accessory muscles in the neck and shoulder, that's going to lead to the opposite. It's going to lead to tension in the body and sympathetic drive, fight or flight. So your belly should be moving in and out with your breath, reflecting the way in which the diaphragm is pressing down and therefore pushing the abdomen out as it moves down towards the abdominal area. And then as the diaphragm rises back up to its domed, relaxed position, the belly will softly move back in. As you tune into this soft, low, subtle and light breath, try to feel two things. One is that because the breath is low, it's a little bit slower. It's taking longer to come in through the nose and reach the base of the lungs. Feel that the exhale is effortless. The diaphragm is just going to move back as it relaxes. The springy and elastic quality of lung tissue will make exhalation passive. So feel as if there is just this tiny bit of effort on inhalation and a simple letting go on exhalation. And feel as if the breath is light. The thousands and thousands of fine hairs in the nostrils are barely moving as you breathe in and breathe out. There's nothing forced, there's nothing laboured. Low, slow and light. And as you breathe in this way, which is such a simple practice we might teach, and we do teach on week 1, can also still be profoundly powerful. So just reflect on what you are experiencing in your own body, perhaps a softening. As your jaw relaxes a little bit, is there a little bit more saliva in the mouth? Do you feel slightly warmer? Maybe a very subtle tingling in the hands and the feet. And these are all physiological expressions of the relaxation response beginning to happen, the parasympathetic side of the autonomic nervous system being stimulated via the vagus nerve. It's what everybody needs every day, and some people desperately need because they are chronically on the other side of that description. So we're gonna move on now, and we're going to introduce an Ujjayi breath, which on the Yoga for Health program we call the ocean breath. So we don't use any Sanskrit terms at all in our protocol and in our teaching to NHS patients. And I'm not going to go into that now, but it's pretty obvious. And if you want to ask about that at the end, feel free to do that. So you don't have to do ocean breath or Ujjayi breath, but I'm guessing with your experience that many of you will know how to do that. So we're just looking to elongate the exhale by creating that little bit of subtle sound in the throat during the out breath. So the same very light, subtle inhalation, and then the exhale. Feel as if you are inviting that exhale to lengthen, to tail off into softness, and for the next inhale to arise in an equally soft way. So we don't want to extend that breath so far that there's a sudden switch from exhale to inhale. We want the transition to be easy. When we teach this to patients, we often just get them to do a long ha sound through the mouth. And when they've got that, we get them to close the mouth softly halfway through the exhale through the mouth, and that ha sound will just automatically transfer to the nose for those who are finding it tricky. Some of them, ocean breath, if they've got a something going on in the throat, any cough symptoms will irritate it, in which case you just stay with your usual breath and subtly lengthen the exhale in any way you can. And then we'll move on to the next stage of this practice, which is to continue with ocean breath on the exhalation and just add it into the inhalation as well. So we have a slightly longer inhale and a longer still exhale. Still looking for that longer exhale compared to the inhale, but the ocean breath, the Ujjayi on the inhale, will also just stretch that breath. So the overall breathing rate of breaths per minute will probably just drop slightly more. And as you fold in ocean breath on inhale and exhale, just keep maintaining that intention of low, slow, and very light and subtle breathing overall, using the diaphragm, not using the chest or the neck and shoulder muscles. And then the final stage of this practice is to completely exhale and allow the exhale to die away into a moment of pause. So this is not a breath hold, and there still should be absolutely no sense of shortness of breath and needing to force that inhale. So it's now inhale, ocean breath, inhale, ujjayi breath, long exhale, ocean breath, pause, inhale, exhale, pause. With the NHS patients, I often use a visual aid for that. These little breathing balls from Wilko and toy retailers are really useful. Inhale, exhale, pause. We'll do 3 more in your own time. At the end of your 3rd exhale, just keep the eyes closed, check in with exactly how you feel right now. Just notice the physical body, notice the breath, notice the state of mind, notice any of those physiological indicators of parasympathetic relaxation response. And then blinking open the eyes. So my heart rate is just plugged in the oximeters, dropped from 95 to 65. It's oscillating between 62, 65, 67. So, a big step change in heart rate. And what we would do if we had a little bit more time, so I'm just going to mention it and you can maybe do it in your own practice if you're interested. During that long exhale, the heart rate will slow down slightly. And that is because on the exhale, the vagus nerve is stimulated. It sends a signal to the heart. Vagus nerve is the main parasympathetic nerve of the body, as you probably know. It comes from the brain. It goes to many organs in the body, right down to the reproductive organs as well. But the heart and the lungs are the two we're sort of most interested in. So heart rate slows on exhale and speeds up a little on inhale when there is no signaling into the heart from the vagus nerve. So this is called heart rate variability. You may have heard of that concept, the idea that the heart speeds up and slows down with the breath. It's really, really interesting. And heart rate variability correlates quite strongly with good health, and people at risk of chronic disease tend to have poor heart rate variability. So it's an indicator of physiological resilience. By teaching and by your own practice of the long exhale, you are exaggerating that vagal response. You're giving the vagus more time to signal to the heart during that long exhale. So you're getting more slowing down of the heart, you're getting more parasympathetic activity, you're getting more relaxation response. So we would do that. We do that in the first 7 weeks of our 10-week protocol. We build up to that practice you just did at the end there. Inhale, exhale, pause using ocean breath in order to enable patients, students to experience this strong parasympathetic response and to move away from the chronic fight or flight sympathetic drive that they may be stuck in. So heart rate variability. Remember straw breathing? We used to do a lot of this on the teach training program. It can be a useful way. Obviously, it involves breathing out of the mouth, but for people who are struggling to lengthen their exhale, it takes longer to breathe through a narrow airway. And you can get straws of different diameters, including quite thick ones for people who might be struggling a little bit more with their breath, because this has to be, like all breath work, completely comfortable. So that would be inhale through the nose. Just going to take you longer to exhale through a straw. That will give you the same parasympathetic response from the long exhale. So it could be a useful tool. And also, if you just want to pep up your teaching, if you're a yoga teacher with something new, students enjoy that. Do make sure you only buy paper straws. Do not use plastic straws, please. Okay, so that's the reason we do that practice, and I'm going to take you through one more practice, and then you will have experienced the whole scheme of work of breath work that we decided through all the research papers we looked at would be the most beneficial and most effective for NHS patients. And we're currently working with lots of other different groups, and we're still using these same breathing practices. So we're now going to slightly switch to a samavritti, an equal rhythm of breath. Some of you may have experienced this with Joe last year, or you've come across it already. It's called coherent breathing. Sometimes it's just called equal breathing, or in yoga terms, it's called the samavritti ratio, where it's inhaling and exhaling for the same amount of time. There's quite a lot of writing about that in the yoga tradition, that different ratios, 5-5, 6-6, 7-7, 8-8. These will all have different effects on the body in different ways. I'm not going to go there because they're not particularly evidence-based benefits, but it's absolutely fine. They haven't been investigated properly, so I'm certainly not here to dispute stuff in a traditional yoga practice. Okay, so we'll close our eyes again. We'll just tune into the breath and just begin to draw your inhale and exhale into this equal rhythm. And if I was teaching this if you were a group of NHS patients, I would use an audio cue. It doesn't work very well over Zoom. I'm not going to use it today, but we have both a chime that chimes every 6 seconds, and we have a piano track that goes do 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 for 6 seconds, and then do 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 for 6 seconds, and that helps them. And for many of these patients, achieving 6 seconds is a major undertaking. So many of them are going to be at 4 or 5 seconds, and that's absolutely fine. That's how we teach it. But when we teach this to yoga teachers or experienced yoga practitioners, as many of you are, they find 6 seconds too slow. So I'm just going to say equal rhythm. And if you're interested, if you want to silently count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, exhale 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and roughly reflect on how long your inhale and exhale is, but just come to a comfortable rhythm. And we'll just do this one for a couple of minutes. Just let that practice go. Take a moment to notice how you feel compared with the previous practice. So what we would tend to expect is that the inhale, long exhale, pause can make you quite sleepy, quite soporific, all those characteristics of relaxation response, which is great, really, really good. And coherent breathing, for which there is a wealth of research evidence you might want to look up. There's a website called coherent.com if you want to read about it. It was developed by Stephen Elliott. Doctors Patricia Gerbarg and Richard Brown, who I bet Heather mentioned in her earlier session if you were in that, because they're mentors to her. They've done a lot of work with coherent breathing, and their website is Breath Body Mind. They're worth looking up as well. So there's a great deal of evidence to show that this practice will, in a population when compared with a control group, will have a substantial and sustained impact in a good way on heart rate variability, but it will also build resilience. So you may just begin to feel a little bit more alert, a little bit more strength coming into the body, a sense of energy coming into the body compared with the previous practice. Whenever we teach these breathing practices, we then do them for the whole of the class. So we just introduce a breathing practice at the beginning. We do it throughout the postures. We do it after the relaxation at the end, again to remind them, and then our patients go away and practice that breathing technique every day for a week, and then the next week they'll learn the next stage. So 1 to 7 they build up to inhale, long exhale, pause, ocean breath, and then 8, 9 and 10 they learn coherent breathing, they practice that. And we also encourage them to be breath ambassadors and share their breathing practice with friends and family. Okay, so we will do a little bit of physical practice shortly. Some of you will know sort of 4 or 5 years ago, this would have been an Ashtanga yoga workshop, and we'd be doing all sorts of crazy stuff. I've moved away from that. Still do it in my own personal practice, but it's much more this work with social prescribing that is what I'm about now. So before we leave breathing, I just want to say something about Buteyko and nose breathing. So there's this long tradition in yoga of breathing in and out through the nose, although there are certain pranayamas where we breathe through pursed lips and other Sitali, Sikari, Brahmari, lots of ones where occasionally the mouth breathing on the exhale may be brought in. But we're focusing on the nose, and it's actually vitally important that we breathe in through the nose. So this is where Patrick McEwen, who's whose book I waved before you earlier, who is one of the leading international teachers of the Buteyko breathing technique, which comes from a Ukrainian doctor called Konstantin Buteyko. Feel free to Google a little bit about him if you're interested. And essentially, Buteyko has understood that there are a significant group of people in the population who are chronic hyperventilators and mouth breathers, and that has a detrimental effect on their physiology. So these people will tend to be people with asthma, suffering anxiety. They'll have sleep disorders like sleep apnea, where the breath stops, is not in a regular rhythm during the night. Often that will be associated with snoring, and that will be associated with mouth breathing primarily. So when we breathe in, I could talk for this for ages because it's a love of mine. But Patrick talks about the 30 functions of the nose, and one of my original anatomy and physiology teachers, Dr. Ruth Gilmore, used to do a fantastic session on nasal cavity anatomy and what goes on there. So as you breathe in, the ridges, the kind of turbines of the nose, the turbinates, ridges of the nose just inside that you can see if you peer up your nostril with a torch. serve to interrupt the flow of breath. So the breath spins as it goes up. The spinning of the air throws particles, pathogens like bacteria and viruses, onto the lining of the mucus, which is of the nasal lining, which is a mucus wall with tiny beating cilia, beating in extraordinarily fast motion, moving a carpet of mucus up towards the back of the throat. At the same time, white blood cells, in the science of swara yoga, where one nostril is slightly congested and one is more free. In physiological terms, that's the engorgement of the nostril to allow white blood cells to push through into the mucus lining and devour bacteria and other invaders. And then every couple of hours it swaps to the other nostril. So there's a physiological basis. There's also an energetic sort of yogic interpretation of that as well. And then as the breath travels up, so that just to finish the story of the mucus carpet, that will attract some pathogens. It gets to the back of the throat every now and then. You don't even notice it. You just swallow down to the stomach, and that mucus is then sterilized by stomach acid. So the nose is the first line of defense. The other thing it does is that within the nasal cavities, nitrous oxide is produced. You may have read about this as becoming kind of trendy thing for yoga teachers to be aware of. So nitrous oxide was only discovered in the early 90s. Prior to that, only discovered in the nose, and that we make it in the nose in the early 1990s. Prior to that, it was just considered as a horrendous, noxious, toxic waste gas that comes out of car exhaust fumes. So there's that nitric oxide, and then there's the very low level naturally produced nitric oxide in the nasal cavities that support breathing. So as you breathe in through the nose, you draw that nitric oxide into the lungs, where it is a bronchodilator. So it helps to keep the airways open. It supports the delivery of breath and therefore oxygen to the alveoli of the lungs. And so effective is it at doing that it was named by New Scientist magazine as Molecule of the Year when all the benefits to breathing were discovered. So Buteyko, that's one reason. If you breathe in through the mouth, you don't harvest any of your nitric oxide that you have created. You can only harvest it if you breathe in through the nose. So breathing in through the mouth would not be a good idea. Breathing through the mouth and out through the nose would be the worst in terms of nitric oxide, because you just the mouth air goes straight into the lungs, hasn't been filtered, hasn't been sorted through by your white blood cells, hasn't been warmed in the same way. Lots of bad ideas. You're just going to pull viruses and bacteria. Now, although you've got mucus defense systems in the windpipe, in the trachea, and in the lungs themselves, you're much more likely to get chest infections if you mouth breathe, or you're much more likely to put yourself at risk of getting that bacterial or viral load that will cause those infections, because you're sucking them straight in. Okay, so nose breathing is what we want. Nitrous oxide is one of the ways that is very, very helpful. And then we'll do a little breathing, Buteyko breathing technique now. So what I would like you to do is to just tune in to your breath once more. And this will be the last breathing practice where we get moving. And I want you to begin to find a really easy rhythm, just like the breath awareness we did right at the start of this session. So you've got your easiest, most relaxed breath. And then for the kind of part of this practice that is the Buteyko technique, you will either need to silently count roughly at a rate of a second per count, or if you've got a watch on or you've got a clock you can look at, we're gonna time something. And what we're going to time is that at the end of an exhale in a moment or two, I'm going to invite you just to pause the breath. Only if it's safe for you to do so. If you've got any contraindications to breath holding, then don't do this. That's taken as read with this kind of audience. But what you're going to do, if it's safe for you to do so, you're just going to pause the breath at the end of the exhale, and you're going to time how long it is before you get an urge to breathe in. So it's not about holding the breath for as long as you can, it's just suspending the breath at the end of the exhale and waiting for the urge, the trigger from your own breathing physiology to tell you it's time to breathe in, and measure that pause, which we're going to call the control pause. So when you feel ready, just do that. And when you've done one of those, we're going to return the breath to its natural rhythm again. Let everything settle, because as you pause the breath there, you weren't drawing oxygen in, fresh oxygen, so the balance of oxygen and CO2, the CO2 was going up, the oxygen was going down. So we're going to do a few breaths now, just bring those two gases back into balance in the body. And then we'll just do it once more. We should do it 3 times really. I'm just going to save a bit of time, and you can do it as many times as you like if this interests you, and take it into your own practice. So do 2 or 3 more natural, easy breaths until you feel you're right back in that core of relaxed breathing, and then do another exhale, pause, time the pause before you get an urge to breathe in. Okay, I'm guessing most of you will have completed 2 by now. So it doesn't matter, you don't need to share what number you got to, but what I will share with you is that according to Patrick McEwen and the Buteyko technique, those who have a low control pause, and they also call this air hunger. It's like that feeling, I need more breath, and this is a concept that resonates strongly with people with asthma. They constantly feel this air hunger. They have this feeling that they're not getting enough breath, and their natural reaction is to breathe more rapidly. So a lot of people with asthma, ironically, are chronic hyperventilators. And this is quite personal to me, because I discovered through doing the training to become a Buteyko breathing coach that I am a chronic hyperventilator. And when I got into yoga and then I got into Ashtanga, I realized that through doing a strong physical practice, but with a highly regulated and controlled Ujjayi breath, I was able to feel incredible, because I was actually no longer hyperventilating. So hyperventilation is, it's a simple concept. It means that you are breathing in excess of your metabolic needs for whatever it is you're doing at that moment. I'm sharing this because I think it's really important for yoga practitioners to recognize whether that breathing pattern, and we're going to call that a breathing pattern disorder, whether that is occurring within themselves, and if you're a teacher, to be able to recognize breathing pattern disorder in the students you're teaching. So if you've got a chronic hyperventilator in your class and you start teaching them full yogic breath or Kapalabhati or Bhastrika, which are all hyperventilation practices, or they can do full yogic breath in a very subtle, controlled way, what you're doing is deepening their pattern of breathing pattern disorder. So the principle of Buteyko is to really address this cohort of the population who are significant in number, who have a dysfunctional breathing pattern that involves hyperventilation, and to teach them techniques of subtle, reduced breathing. So what we did at the beginning of the class, when I said breathing in, hardly moving the fine hairs of the nostrils, keeping the breath low in the diaphragm, not using the chest or the neck muscles, and finding the subtlety and flow of the breath. That is all a kind of Buteyko approach to breath awareness, which I think is fabulous, and there's a lot of science behind Buteyko which will absolutely back up what I'm saying. So, and this may shock, even though there's only a few numbers in this class. If your control pause, if the number of seconds between you finishing that exhale and you getting a strong urge to breathe in, if it was less than 25 seconds, then you would be placed in the category of someone who may have a dysfunctional breathing pattern, and you would then do further investigation to see what that breathing pattern disorder was and how you might address it through Buteyko practice. When I started doing it, it was a revelation to me. I was 15 to 17 seconds. When Patrick McEwen works with long COVID patients, their control pause can be 5 seconds. With asthmatics, it could be 10 to 12 seconds. So over time, through practices, you build up the ability to effortlessly and in a completely relaxed way with no strain whatsoever, build up the ability to widen, to stretch out this control pause, and this will have a significant effect on addressing the breathing pattern disorder. And I don't have time to go much further than that, only to say that one of the crucial things here that is causing some of our students and ourselves and people we meet to be chronic hyperventilators is that through a breathing pattern disorder, they have trained their body to be oversensitive to the carbon dioxide levels in their body. So if you think about what we said earlier, as you suspend the breath, CO2 levels start to rise, and in the blood it's carbonic acid, in the breath it's carbon dioxide, oxygen levels are going down, but this isn't significant. Most of the chemoreceptors in your body are monitoring the CO2 levels. So as CO2 levels rise, your body naturally wants you to breathe in, to breathe out some of the CO2, bring up the oxygen, bring it back to balance. But what's happening in people with breathing pattern disorder is that as soon as CO2 levels rise even slightly, it kicks in and they're breathing in. So actually they're ending up with depressed CO2 levels. They're ending up with too little carbon dioxide in their lungs, ending up with too little CO2. That affects the acidity of the blood, because carbonic acid is dissolved CO2. And we know from the work of the scientist whose name was Bohr, the Bohr effect is that if you don't have enough carbon dioxide dissolved in your blood, it stops, it causes oxygen and CO2 actually to bind more strongly to red blood cells. So it's more difficult for the cells in your body to receive the oxygen at a cellular level if you have artificially depressed or chronically depressed CO2 levels. So a big part of Buteyko and developing that control pause and the practices of Buteyko that I'm not going to go into are about re-educating the body back to tolerating a normal range of CO2 levels. CO2 levels should be able to move up and down without the breath being triggered by the very slightest rise in those levels. And just finally on that is the this idea that you can do everything you can during the day, but at night, if you're mouth breathing, you're undoing it all. So Buteyko also, they wear mouth tape, and I use it most nights, and it's just like a stretchy, elastic, slightly adhesive. It looks like a plaster with a hole in the middle. It goes around the mouth, and it just keeps the lips together. So you can still open your mouth and breathe in and out through the mouth, or talk if you need to, but when you're asleep, it just holds the lips together and helps you develop a pattern of nose breathing. It's made a massive difference to the quality of my sleep and how refreshed I feel in the morning. And some of those classic signs of hyperventilators, of clammy hands, cold hands and feet, lots of sighing and yawning during the day, all those things can disappear if you can bring yourself back to a functional breathing pattern. Okay, that breathing section has just taken way longer than I expected, but I think it's interesting. I hope you did too. So we're gonna quickly come down to the mat, although if you want to stay in the chair you can, or if you just have enough of the mat, you can do this next section from standing if you prefer. So I'm gonna teach this from standing just because you've been sitting for a long time, but you can do this from your chair or from sitting, as I said. So just standing in a really comfortable position, bring the palms together in front of the heart, and then as you breathe in, just breathe in through the nose, and as you breathe out, bring the palms together. Now let the arm movement reflect the breath. I'm going to invite you to do the inhale, long exhale, pause, using ocean breath throughout this short physical practice. So this is a very simple arm movement, but it's going to give us a little bit of feedback on where we are with the shoulders. Do these shoulders feel relaxed? And as you draw them back, there's a lot of freedom of movement. Can you feel the scapula, the shoulder blades at the back, moving together, sliding across that space behind the back ribs? And the shoulders are staying down, they're not rising up at all. So there's this movement there. And as you do that, you're opening the upper chest a little bit. You're feeling a little bit of stretch across the pectoralis muscles, and you're feeling a little bit of the thoracic part of the spine, the mid-back, just drawing into the body at the back as the space is created here, and exhale. So we're using that for those reasons, but also primarily to coordinate breath with movement. And then let the arms hang, give the arms a little shake, and then turn the palms out, but try to turn the palms out from the shoulders. So we could just turn the palms out using the ulnar and radius at the elbows, and the shoulders haven't moved, but we're actually trying to do that. We're trying to feel this outward rotation of the upper arm, the humerus in the shoulder joint, and then we can breathe in, and we're going to float the arms up. And I'm just keeping the hands and the elbows really soft here because I don't want rigid, straight arms that are going to transfer tension into the shoulders. I don't want the shoulders to rise at all. I want them to stay down. And then when I finish my inhale, I'm going to turn the palms to indicate the transition to exhale. And then I'm going to do my long exhale and release the hands. Turning the palms. So the palm turning represents the transitions between inhale and exhale and inhale. So do a few of these using your ocean breath. Inhale, long exhale, pause. And try to feel that the arms are becoming lighter and lighter with each practice. And at the end of the next exhale, just give the arms a little shake. Then we do a little bit of shoulder releasing. So breathing in, bring the shoulders forwards and up. And as you exhale, take the shoulders back and down. Just try and let the arms hang from the shoulders so they're not holding any tension. I'm going to move fairly briskly through these, so forgive me for not doing as many repetitions as I would do with more time. So bring the fingertips to the top of the shoulders, and now we are rotating the elbows just through your pain-free range of motion. Release the arms again. Take the right palm out and inhale. Reach up, any comfortable position. If you can't take the arm higher than the shoulder, just come to here, that's fine. And then exhale, slide the other hand down the leg to do a side stretch. Inhale, come up, and exhale, turn the palm and lower, and inhale, reaching up. Long exhale and pause. Inhale, coming up. Exhale, release. Once more to each side in your own time. Give the arms a little shake. Bring the palms back together in front of the heart. And as you breathe in, really feel as if you're drawing your breath up from the ground, all the way to the crown of the head, making yourself as tall as possible, especially thinking about using the breath to lengthen the spinal channel. And then as you exhale, we're going to twist to the right. So you don't really need to turn the pelvis. If you're in a chair, it won't turn anyway. You want this twist to be in the spine, so not so much in the pelvis. Just exhale, stabilize the pelvis, turn the head and the shoulders to the right, and then release the hands down. Just hold that position. As you breathe in, feel as if you're still lengthening out. As you're breathing out, just softening into this clockwise twist. And then leave the shoulders where they are and just turn the head back. So you're looking forward. So now the shoulders and the head are going in opposite directions. Breathing in, come back to center, lengthen through the spinal channel, exhale around to the left. Still drawing up on the inhale, softening into the twist on the exhale. Breathing in, turn the head to look back into the center. Now head's going clockwise, shoulders anti-clockwise. And then inhale, coming back to center, and just give the shoulders a roll, give the hands a shake. Bring the hands onto the thighs. So if you're in a chair, you just fold over the thighs, using the hands to support the upper body. This is just coming back to the midline. Very nice way to stretch out the lower back without taking head below heart. If you've got no contraindications, you want to do a slightly fuller forward bend there, obviously you could. And then coming back up to standing. So I'm going to do a couple of things on the mat now, and use a yoga belt, and then we'll do a couple of standing poses and a balance. So if you come down to your mat, and one of my real pet hates is to see people in a yoga class without anything under their head in this position. So when the chin is higher than the forehead, there's a lot of unwanted extension through the neck, hyperextension, loss of space in the back of the neck. It's a disaster, and so many people, particularly with slightly stiffer spines, older people, you've got to get that head supported. I pretty much get everyone to support their head on a block or a blanket, and you definitely want to get all your students or yourself to have at least their forehead level with the chin, or even slightly higher is fine, because that will stretch out the neck a little bit and counteract the sort of chronic postural hyperextension that we see, particularly with people working at computers a lot. So we're gonna draw the knees in, hold the thighs or the shins, take a little rock from side to side. And then come back to center, both hands on the knees, keep the knees together and circle around your sacrum. If you want to work a little bit more strongly, you can do that without the hands. That will involve a little bit more core muscle work, if it's safe to do that. A few circles round in the other direction. And then we're going to take one hand onto each knee and circle into the hips. So pretty much unthinkable for me to do a practice, self-practice or a talk class where I didn't include this hip opener, because the hips are such a weight-bearing joint. It's much more difficult to open the hips when the weight of the body is going through. So in this position, gives you maximum access to the full range of motion in your ball and socket joint there. And you know, with all the chair sitting, if you let people, or you allow yourself to get stiff hips, it's going to trigger a lot of other things, other problems like lower back pain. We know that as whatever joint becomes stiff, the movement gets referred to the one above or the one below, so really important. Let's just finish by drawing the knees in towards the chest, so it's safe to do so, and then just doing that, one breath on each leg. You can tell I'm short of time. Inhale and exhale. Squeeze the right thigh in, and then changing legs. Inhale and exhale. And then release from that, grab hold of your belt. Take it around the right foot. Wrap the belt at least once around the hands. That will stop you having to grip the belt too much, which will tense the shoulders. Just make sure the shoulders are back and down and relaxed. Keep a nice bend in this knee, and then breathing in, draw the knee towards the chest. And breathing out, allow the leg to extend to whatever is the right amount of stretch for you. If you're very, very flexible and have an issue of hypermobility and hyperextension, just use the belt to control the stretch so the leg is just going straight and not beyond straight. But most students, most of us, have a bit of tightness in the hamstrings, so this inhale, slacken the muscle. Exhale, long exhale, pause, stretch the muscle. It's a very efficient way of increasing length. So on this last one, we're just going to hold the stretch. And if any of you are used to doing deeper stretches, feel free to use the belt to draw the leg in a little bit more towards the body. We're keeping the head and the shoulder blades flat on the floor, so plenty of bend in the elbows. End of the next exhale, let that right knee bend and bring in the left leg to take over the belt. Right leg in semi-supine. Inhale, draw the knee in. Exhale, extend. And then on the next exhale, coming into the static stretch on the left leg. If you have the expectation that the softening, the release of tight muscles will happen during that long exhale and pause, that is the time it will happen compared with the inhale, where, because that little bit of sympathetic stimulation, it's much more a holding position on the inhale, and we tend to experience our deepest expression of stretches and space during the out breath. And then bend that left leg, release the belt, bring the knees in, take a little rock from side to side. And then remove anything from the back of the head. Tuck the tailbone under, make the lower back flat on the floor, feet hip width apart. And we're just going to inhale and exhale, long exhale, and draw the abdominal muscles in. There's actually your deepest abdominal muscle there, transversus abdominis. So you feel on the exhale the lower back being gently pressed down towards the mat. So we're just going to stabilize that lower back area so that on the next inhale you can just lift the pelvis halfway, then exhale, tuck and roll the spine down. And then do that 3 or 4 more times, and each time you breathe in, you can bring the pelvis a little bit higher and exhale, roll down. Finishing with that little drawing in of the tummy muscles and pause. And if you want to add in an arm movement, and then the next time you roll the spine down, draw the knees in, take a little rock from side to side. And then we're going to come back up to standing. Going to bring the palms together in front of the heart. You can do this from a chair or from standing, and you can use the back of the chair. I'll just show you the options as we go through them, but we'll go through them together. So breathing in, open the chest, draw the elbows back, and breathing out, bend the knees, bring the hands onto the thighs, and just come down to a flat back position, forward bend. Breathing in, lift the chest. You can hover the hands if you want to build back strength. And then exhale a little deeper into your forward bend. Go wherever it's safe for you to do so. Keep the head level with the heart if you need to. Bend the knees flat back. Inhale, coming up. Exhale, palms together. Inhale, reach up. Exhale, side sway. Inhale, reach up. Exhale, hands to heart. Inhale, reach up. Exhale to the other side. Inhale, reach up. Exhale, hands to heart. Carry on standing if you want to. I'm just going to do the next one with you from a chair. Inhale. Exhale. 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 And one more round. Again, just continue to do the sequence in whatever position is suitable for you, and it'll show how it can be done using the back of a chair. Take your time to finish that sun salutation. It's a kind of inclusive version of a sun salutation that we created for the NHS protocol. And when you finish that, just sitting quietly for a moment on a chair, on the mat, whatever suits you. I was told I could overrun by 5 minutes, so I'm going to do that. Sorry if anyone's tummy's rumbling. Just close your eyes, reflect on how you're feeling right now. And then just take 3 breaths, but imagine that you are drawing the breath up from the ground, either through the soles of the feet up to the crown of the head if you're in a chair, or up through the base of the pelvis and the outside of the feet and the legs if you're sitting cross-legged. Inhaling up through the spinal channel to the crown of the head, and exhale, feeling the long exhale, the breath washing over the outside of the body back down to the ground. A bit like a fountain of energy, inhaling up from the ground, up through the spinal channel to the crown of the head. Long exhale, breath flowing down the outside of the body, back down to the ground, washing away everything that doesn't serve you, tension, mental clutter, feelings of fatigue. at the end of the next exhale, allow your breath to return to its own natural rhythm. Take a final check-in with yourself. And then when you're ready, blinking, open the eyes. So 2 minutes of benefits or bullshit. So it's just, you've probably heard these before. There's sort of classic yoga, old wives' tales that would just have their origins in the 1930s, got repeated in books like On Yoga and some of the Satyananda books without question, just been passed on. They were never soundly based in the first place, and they're certainly not now. So this one's from the Shivananda Yoga Vedanta Center book. In Shavasana, shoulder stand, the thyroid gland is massaged and brought to its proper level of activity. It centralizes the blood supply in the spinal column and helps cure insomnia and depression. So we go like this with the thumb, and then we go down if it's bullshit, horizontal if you don't know, or a thumbs up. Well, that one gets a thumbs down, I'm afraid. I'm not going to have time to go into all of these. I'm going to be fair and sort of produce one from Patabi Joyce, of course. Ashtanga was my background. Janusasana has a powerful effect on the urinary system when coffee is drunk in excess and there is an overindulgence in sexual activity which saps vital power, making the semen weak and the blood thin. These conditions can lead to diabetes and can be avoided by the practice of Janusasana. Run that past the doctor, it's going to probably get the thumbs down. And Swami Satyananda, Bhujangasana, Cobra, gently tones the female reproductive organs and is excellent for pregnant women, thereby going against all British Yoga advice and others about lying in your tummy. Helps remove female sexual disorders, tones the ovaries and uterus, stimulates the appetite and eliminates constipation. It relocates slipped discs, removes backache and keeps the spine supple and healthy. So, yeah, not great. If you want to read more about that, Elliot Goldberg's book, The Path of Modern Yoga, is both illuminating and amusing. The original trials of Swami Kubalananda's work on shoulder stand, the paper written up, not only talked about regulating the thyroid, which is the one you always hear, which is there's no evidence for, but it also helps with shrunken testicles and leprosy and malaria, apparently. So another reason, we have this amazing evidence base now. Let's use it, and that will help with the discussion with healthcare professionals and help us with our social prescribing initiative. Thanks all for joining me.